Hello again. Now, Eskom has proposed new tariffs, which will come into effect on the 1st of April in 2023, if they are approved by Nersa, the regulator. Some of the proposals include home flex, which is mandatory for customers with their own generation capacity. Let's discuss how these new proposed tariffs by Eskom will impact or change the lives of businesses. I'm joined by David McDonald. He's the SolarAfrica CEO. Good afternoon, David. Thank you very much for your time. Welcome to Today on eNCA. Just broadly first, these new tariff proposals that Eskom is putting on the table, how are they likely to impact businesses, particularly those that rely on solar?
Good afternoon, Dan. Thanks for allowing me to join the conversation. Our point of view is that it's an extremely positive step. Whilst in the short term, it may affect the consumer's pocket, I think it is the right decision in the long term. What most consumers potentially aren't factoring into their current calculations are the long-term future opportunity costs. The new tariffs align with Eskom's strategy of disbanding, which I think is a critical step for the future liberalization of the South African energy market. And why I say that, I think it's a well-known fact that the generation business unit is the crippling arm of Eskom, and particularly the country's economy. The new tariffs are going to allow Eskom to generate revenue within the transmission and the distribution business units. Why is that critical for South Africa? Well, without the distribution and the transmission networks, IPPs like ourselves are unable to get access to the network and provide our services to the end consumer. Whilst the fixed charges for distribution and transmission may increase, by allowing IPPs onto the network and in line with the President's latest speech, you're going to get a market that is extremely competitive. So the variable cost of energy is going to decrease. There's lots of energy in the market in terms of expanding transmission and distribution networks along specific corridors, working with IPPs to understand where those generation assets can be, where they're most efficient. And I think the security of the grid in the long term is more valuable to the consumers and to the country than in the short term cost of increase.
So this home flex thing, which is mandatory now, if you generate your own capacity, how would it work? How would it affect the business?
I think if you've already purchased a solar system, it's going to affect your payback. Obviously, if your fixed costs are increasing and your variable cost, which effectively you're offsetting with your solar system, is reduced, your payback periods are going to decrease. But I think Eskom's view on it is to open up the market, so to allow everybody who's got an asset that's effectively sitting on the roof, who may not be generating power on a Saturday and a Sunday because you're not consuming it, open up the network, allow you to feed that energy back onto the market and give you a rebate. There's the positive moves in the market in terms of electricity trading licenses being issued this year for the private sector to step in, buy that additional energy and trade it on to a willing buyer. So the cost of increasing the increased cost of the transmission and distribution networks effectively allows for a more efficient energy system. So whilst your payback might be a little bit longer in the short term, once those grid open, you can sell that excess energy onto the market. You'll kind of recover. And solar is definitely still the cheapest form of electricity in South Africa. So I'll definitely be putting my money behind that.
So if you say you can sell it back, you don't want to get cash. I mean, you're going to get what? How will Eskom, what is the proposal in terms of this new tariff system that you are welcoming that will make me smile?
I think I don't think you'll necessarily be receiving cash. However, it will be a financial transaction on your bill. So you'll get a credit against any future energy that you buy. Currently, Eskom's policy allow you to already do that through a policy called wheeling. So you can buy energy from an IPP that's generated hundreds of kilometers away, but it's a financial transaction that happens on your bill, right? So it'll be on a similar basis. You'll still need to be a net consumer of energy. So, you can't just be exporting power and not consuming anything from the grid. And Eskom are generally going to cap you to make sure that you're still a consumer, as opposed to a 100% exporter. So
will there be opportunities for customers to save then on electricity cost if these new tariffs are then approved next year? You said it's a longer term view rather than a short term gain.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an ability to save costs. The inflation of electricity costs over the last kind of 10 to 15 years in South Africa has been astronomical. And that's due to the failing arm of generation for Eskom, right? So those costs aren't necessarily, or those tariffs aren't necessarily cost reflective. So I think as soon as we get a cost reflective tariff, and this is where Nersa have to play a critical role in understanding what actual costs Eskom are incurring, to ensure that we don't get inflated network costs or fixed charges. Once you've got a cost reflective tariff, the number of IPPs that are going to be on the market, the number of traders that are going to be in the market, the price tension that you're going to get in the market, I believe your variable cost of energy is going to plummet, right? The efficiency of the network is going to increase. The stability of the network is going to increase. We potentially might not be subject to load shedding in the future once the IPPs are generating all of this electricity. And again, it talks to the president's speech about let's open up the networks. Why are we constraining ourselves with all of these licensing? There's private money that's available to invest in these. Why don't we let the private sector join the party? So definitely savings in the future, but effectively we need to ensure that we don't go down the same path of having a broke distribution and network transmission business unit. So they're going to make sure that they've got the revenue to obviously upgrade those transmission lines and obviously maintain them. So as I said, in the short term, it's definitely going to feel it in the pocket, but in the long term, price tension, liberalization of the market, energy costs are going to plummet in South Africa.
Just on a practical level, I saw a point that they say they're going to be applying a service charge to different points of delivery. So that they believe that's going to be a fair way, because in their rationale, rather than having these points of delivery under one account and you're paying the same service charge from them, it's not going to be fair while you are sourcing from multiple points of delivery. What is the point they're trying to make there?
I think it goes back to that cost reflectiveness. The losses that are in the system when you are a small user at a low voltage needs to be recovered, right? So it stands to fact that your larger users that have a larger connection are going to pay less. It's just a matter of fact there are less losses in the line, and someone needs to pay for that. So the smaller users are definitely going to be subject to higher pricing, but that needs to be cost reflective. And this, again, as I said, this is Nersa's job to make sure they regulate and they mandate that correctly.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, David, and your insights on this issue of Eskom's new tariffs. That's David McDonald. He's the CEO of SolarAfrica.